Hello, my name is Evgeny Rostotsky, and this is my final project on the article Sweetened Blood Cools Hot Tempers, Physiological Self-Control and Aggression by C. Nathan DeWall et al. The title is Sweet Self-Control. Actual question. Does a lack of self-control lessen the restraints of evil? Concepts and key terms. So there are many reasons to engage in violent behavior and aggression. Reasons include provocation, frustration, alcohol intoxication, violence in the media, and loud noises, etc., as stated by DeWall et al. Self-control is the ability to override urges, thoughts, and certain habitual tendencies in order to behave according to societal standards and personal standards. Appropriate behavior for each provocative situation is self-control in a nutshell. In order for an individual to override aggressive impulses, self-control energy is required. The self-control energy is in part provided by glucose. Glucose, a chemical in the bloodstream that's made from conversion of nutrients into neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters provide energy for important brain processes. Self-control is considered a metabolically expensive process, meaning that takes a lot of energy for the body in order to produce self-control. Metabolism is the chemical processes that occur within a living organism in order to maintain life. Diabetes, a disorder which leaves a person unable to metabolize glucose. Low glucose is linked to poor performance on multiple self-control tasks, as proven in previous literature provided by DeWall et al. So here are the studies in the article. Study 1. Multiple studies have linked low glucose levels to high aggression levels. However, no experiments have shown the link is causal. DeWall et al. Sought to measure aggressive behavior while participants received a sugary drink or a placebo. Participants are 62 college students, of which 66% were female, median age 19.45 years, 76% white. They were told to fast for 3 hours before participating to reduce glucose instability in the body. The procedure. Participants were told that they are in a taste test study in which they would consume a beverage, then complete a computerized task against an opponent which measured their reaction time. Participants received 14 ounces of lemonade sweetened with either sugar or substitute sweetener. Next, they completed a filler task for 8 minutes to allow the glucose to settle in. Participants completed a reaction time task against opponents of the same sex. The task is a valid and reliable measuring tool of aggressive behavior, as the article points out from previous literature. Participants were told they would have to press a button as fast as possible for 25 trials. Whoever was slower received a white noise blast from their partner. The levels were from 1 to 10, and with level 1 being 60 decibels and level 10 being 105 decibels, which sounded like a smoke alarm. There was also a non-aggressive level 0, which emitted no noise. Participants also regulated how long their opponent received a noise blast. Of the 25 trials, participants won 12, randomly determined. The results. Noise intensity on trial 1 was used to measure aggression. It is done so because the trial provides a measurement of unprovoked aggression, since the opponent hadn't had a chance to deliver any noise to the participant yet. The level of noise intensity was used to measure aggression. As we can see from the graph, the study 1 results, the median for a glucose beverage, which is sweet lemonade with actual sugar, is 4.8 decibels. And the median for the placebo beverage with a sugar substitute, is 6.06. And the p-value is 0.02, which is a very significant measure. Study 2 replicates and extends findings of Study 1 by testing why glucose is linked to aggression. Since glucose is a brain food that provides energy, and energy is needed for self-control, those who have difficulty metabolizing glucose should have low self-control. And as we discussed previously, diabetes is a disorder which leaves a person unable to metabolize glucose. Researchers expected that there would be a positive relationship established between diabetic status and aggressiveness. However, they expected the relationship to be indirect. Simply put, those with difficulties in metabolizing glucose would have difficulty exercising self-control, which in turn would be positively related to aggressiveness. Participants were 112 adult volunteers, 80% female, median age is 21 and a half, and they ranged from ages 18 to 54, 78.3% were white. Participants completed a measure of diabetic status, self-control, and aggressiveness. Diabetic status was measured using a 34-item diabetic symptoms checklist revised. Items included in the checklist: aching calves when walking, shortness of breath at night, and sleepiness and drowsiness. Self-control was measured using a 16-item brief self-control scale. I am good at resisting temptation, for example. Aggressiveness was measured using a 29-item scale. Some of my friends think I'm a hothead, for example. So here are the results of study 2. The diabetic status was positively related to aggressiveness. So these are correlational results, but here's what's very important. There is a negative relationship between diabetic status and self-control, and a negative relationship between self-control and aggressiveness, but a positive relationship between aggressiveness. And I will explain. So as diabetic status goes up, self-control goes down. As self-control goes down, aggressiveness goes up. And therefore, diabetes goes up, therefore aggressiveness goes up. Suggests that aggression stops when self-control stops. Study 3 uses diabetic and violent crime rates from all 50 states. Researchers predicted diabetes rates from each state would correlate positively with crime rates. Researchers obtained overall measure of violent crime for the year 2001 from the FBI Uniform Crime Reports. The files were actually checked in 2002. 2001 was selected because researchers were able to obtain diabetic rates from that year as well. The results was study 3, but we can see that it is a moderate relationship. The prevalence of diabetes was positively linked with violent crime rates. So as diabetes rates went up, violent crime rates went up. Study 4 tested whether the prevalence of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency across the world predicted increase in violence. Specifically, violent non-accidental killings not related and related to wartime. Data collection for most current prevalence rates in glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency was collected from World Health Organization. It is collected from 122 countries. Prevalence of the deficiency in the reports are stable because it is a hereditary condition. Study 4 results. Again, a moderate relationship, but we can see that the prevalence of glucose deficiency, as that goes up, non-war killings in the year 2002 also go up. So they will the prevalence of glucose deficiency rates was positively linked to non-war killings. They predicted non-war killings across countries. What does it all mean? Aggression may depend on the body's ability to metabolize glucose. People who are unable to metabolize glucose are not going to give the brain fuel to process energy required for self-control. Study 1 showed that people who receive a boost of glucose levels, as opposed to people that do not, are able to have better self-control. Study 2 showed a positive correlation between diabetic status and aggression, which was partially accounted for by self-control. Studies 3 and 4 showed that prevalence of diabetes across the U.S. positively related to violent crime rates, while glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency across 122 countries positively related to non-war killings and war killings across the world. So limitations and future research. The only time self-control was really measured was in Study 2 using the 16-item brief self-control scale. Study 1 best establishes the causal relationship in the lab because it was an actual experiment that established that there was a causal relationship between glucose and lack of self-control. So there was a placebo and the glucose. So the people that received the glucose beverage lacked self-control, as was proven. However, studies 2, 3, and 4 can't establish causal link because those studies are correlational. Very important. Possible modification of those studies is to look at the relationships over time, so do longitudinal research. For example, diabetes rates from the years 2002, 2003, 04, 05, etc. Better control variables such as median incomes, because it is known that people in high crime rates also tend to live in so-called food deserts, where nutritious food is not readily available like in richer areas. So therefore, they are mostly able to only get fast food or snacks or liquor, which would cause them to have a higher risk for diabetes and would cause them to be sick with diabetes. So is a lack of self-control evil? Evil is the infliction of excessive intentional harm. The best measure of aggression is in study 1. The first trial gave a measurement of unprovoked aggression in participants. And it is also the best measure of evil, technically. Participants who did receive a boost in glucose displayed higher aggression, therefore low self-control. The infliction of harm was intentional, not necessarily excessive, because they did only emit white noise blasts. They didn't hurt anybody physically, or even or didn't curse anyone out or inflicted emotional damage upon them. So it was not necessarily excessive, and it is possible that the participant didn't see it that way either. Study 2 provides the worst measure of evil given how they measured aggression. Study 3 and 4 provide a positive correlation between violent crimes, non-war, and war-related killings, positively relate to rates and conditions that make people unable to metabolize glucose in the US and across the world. Violent crime and non-war or war-related killings are intentional and excessive. In conclusion, violent crime and non-war/war-related killings are intentional and excessive, therefore they are evil. However, the studies establish since lack of energy for self-control caused by a lack of glucose or an inability to metabolize it cause aggression, can we really say that a lack of self-control is evil? People with conditions like diabetes are unable to metabolize glucose for energy needed for self-control. They lack self-control because of health condition they have. In my opinion, you cannot call somebody evil if they are sick with a condition that it makes them unable to have enough energy for self-control, and the lack of self-control causes aggression. Because self-control is such an energy-consuming process in our body, people sick with diabetes are not evil, they simply need help. Does a lack of self-control lessen their strains of evil in case of diabetes or other metabolic deficiencies? It doesn't, because evil is intentional first and foremost. Excessive intentional harm. Being sick with a metabolic condition that affects everything from your physical health to your mental well-being is unintentional, and diabetic people need to be treated for it. Here are my references. When it comes to the syllabus timeline, I would have used this study between weeks 13 and 14, where we study belief in pure evil and then revenge, forgiveness, and reconciliation. I would have done so because, in my opinion, lack of self-control is a good transition between pure evil and the subject of forgiveness. So we talk about pure evil, which is people that believe that there is pure evil in the world. Then we talk about lack of self-control, people that cannot control the fact that they might be aggressive because of metabolic conditions that prevent them from developing enough energy for self-control, as proven in the Wall et al.'s article. And then switching from that to revenge, forgiveness, and reconciliation. So therefore, how can we forgive certain deeds? How can we forgive evil? In my opinion, it would be an interesting transition subject. Lack of self-control to forgiveness from belief in pure evil. Thank you very much, and have a good night.